All right, y'all, this video is going to go to the chiropractors who own their own practice or are in positions of leadership. And you're going to love this video because I'm going to address the single suckiest, nastiest, most terrible part of our job when you have that job of having a team, leading a team, and doing these things that really only come with the ownership seat on the bus. And that is firing people. So let's talk about the three facts, the three truths, the three realities of firing people and really break it down, especially number two. You're going to find the real hidden truth, the real hidden answers as to how valuable firing, especially certain people, obviously, are to the growth of your organization. And if you don't understand this lesson, and if you don't understand these principles and really almost the processes and the systems of A, analysis, finding out and figuring out with clarity and quickness who needs to get fired, B, moving on and doing that quickly because you know that C, you're going to get growth from it. So this is a concept, but really there's strategy to this. And I want to really get into the cause of why so many of us miss this, suck at this, struggle with this. And it goes way beyond number one. Number one is it sucks. So the first truth is the most obvious truth I can share in this lesson. Firing people sucks. It doesn't feel good. You're going to literally lose sleep for many nights, the longer you drag it on, weeks or months, you're going to lose that amount of sleep. But especially when you go to fire this person that day, that morning, that lunch, that whenever you decide to do it, definitely do it first thing in the morning and get it out of your way. That's going to suck. I don't have any other way to paint it to you. It just doesn't feel good, even when it's the most obvious, clear reason and like no-brainer firing ever. Now, that's what firing is. You can use stats and you can use measurements and you can use reviews and performance indicators and KPIs to fire someone. That's actually easy. When the stat board shows, hey, this person's not performing, this person's lazy, this person's, not doing their job very well, that's easy. That one, you actually don't lose sleep. I'm not talking about that, firing that person with this video. We're actually talking about firing the high performers. And so really, let me dial back. Truth number one I wanted to share here is that it sucks, but it doesn't. The hidden truth of the suckiness is like all things that are really, really, really sucky, they tend to create the greatest amount of growth. The moment you get through that grind and you get through it, you get the most amount of growth on the other side. What does that look like? What really creates that? Well, number two is how you're going to get the answer to that massive growth. The thing is, the toughest person to fire for sure is your top performers. And well over half the time, those are the people that actually need to get fired. Now, this is where the rubber really meets the road and presents this challenge with firing people. Now, when you look at this person's stat sheet, if it's an associate doctor, how many adjustments they're doing or how much kind of volume they're creating, or it's someone else on the team, how many hours they work and how many of this task or this role, whatever the thing is, when you have high performers, they are the hardest to fire because what you're looking at when you stare at the stat sheet and you stare at the KPIs and you follow all your traditional business training, which is all about math and metrics and performance and KPIs, you look at that stat sheet and you go, how could I possibly fire this person? How could we get by next week, next month, next quarter, next year without this person's production? Wow, look at all those numbers on our metaphoric spreadsheet over here. You know who else? This is the most important part of this video. You know who else is looking at that stat sheet and going, wow, they can't live without me. Wow, I'm awesome. Wow, I adjust this many per week. Wow, I'm the coolest, greatest, most awesome thing on this team. Wow, I make this whole practice. Wow, I make this whole thing go. Wow, have I belabored the point enough? That a-hole who's egotistical, narcissistic, and driven by the wrong reasons, that stat sheet, is the other person looking at that and going, haha, I'm untouchable. You can't fire me. And the moment they get that feeling, it's the worst ever. Because here's the truth about your high performers. And credit goes to Gary Vee for just doing a recent podcast where he really broke this down. And I thought, oh man, I've always known that, but he just clarified it perfectly. And I want to share it here. Full respect to him. High performers are driven by two different totally different things. You have high performers who are driven through humility and hunger to be on mission and achieve a purpose with you. They are confident and they are skilled, so they are high performers, because you can be humble and absolutely confident and certain at the same time. They should come together, and they will come together with your high performers, and they're doing it for the right reasons, which is the cause, which is the purpose of the practice and the company. And then all the way over here, they look the same on the stat sheet. Don't forget that. All the way over here is this high performer who is driven by insecurity, weakness, and ego. Now, on their day-to-day, they look strong, they look confident, they look good to go. On the inside, they are full of insecurity. They have no confidence. They are absolutely ego-driven, narcissistic, the most toxic person ever. And that insecurity and that lack of actual humility and confidence will drive them to perform and fill up the stat sheet and fill up the KPIs. So now this person, because again, go back to the beginning. If someone's not at all performing, well, that's easy, right? They actually might be heart-centered and a really nice person, so that actually can be a hard fire, but not really, because it's just, you run the company, it's your job. If they're not getting the job done, you got to get rid of them. But the person who's getting the job done by math, but destroying the culture and the rest of your team, because see, when someone has their drive coming from insecurity and ego, maintaining their position of importance and significance on your team is their single most important thing in their life every day. So now their daily actions shift to performing just well enough to continue to fill up the KPI corporate stat sheet, and then holding back and holding down everyone else. I've lived this twice. I've had two different docs on our team over the last 10 plus years who, once they achieved a status point on the team, and once their stat sheet and their KPIs and their numeric value was great to the practice, they immediately, it was almost like this internal switch that I didn't even know was in there, just freaking got flipped, and they became the most toxic, egocentric, narcissistic people ever on the team. And it absolutely eroded the culture. The team, our CAs, our other docs just couldn't stand to be around these folks. And then that is where the subluxation and the toxicity and the cancer really brews. Because if you don't fire this egotistical, narcissistic, stat sheet high performer, now you're going to absolutely limit the growth of everyone else on the team who is an actual A++ purpose-driven high performer. And they're either going to be held back and never grow, or what they're really going to do is they're going to exit stage left and stage right, and they're going to go work somewhere else where that a-hole and that egotistical person who somehow still maintains their job, even though they're awful to everyone else, still sits. So I could go on and on with this lesson, but I think you got it. The toughest people to fire are the top performers, but it stops being tough when you take this lesson with you and you understand that the strategy is to assess the performance of your team members, not by numerics and math and KPIs alone. That's why so much of the traction and those corporate things are fantastic, but they can't be done alone. You've got to first evaluate your team based upon their alignment and then actual daily expression of your core values and your culture's rules of the road. Trying to get that one out. So how someone treats others in our practice, in our organizations, is way more important than how much they get done or how much they perform and create profit or adjust patients or do whatever it may be on that stat sheet. So who they are matters a lot more so than how they do the job and what they get done. Obviously, the ideal goal is to get all of them aligned and have that perfect person. And guess what? They exist. They absolutely do exist, but they will not stay existing on your team if the narcissistic, insecure, driven for status only person stays in there. So that's who you've got to fire. And that is the final thing to teach on this. The reason that that person needs to get fired is not their stat sheet. It's their toxicity and it's their nastiness to the rest of the team. So I'll leave you with this lesson within the lesson. Your most important job as a leader is actually no longer to the patients. it's to the team. The way when you move up front that your number one job is to protect the entirety of the team and the culture and make sure it's the greatest place in the world to work. Guess what the team as a collective does? Takes care of the patients, takes care of, customers, clients in a different business model. And so by taking care of the team and making that your single biggest obsession and litmus test, you are taking care of the outward facing patients. So you're doing that job too. And the number one thing you could do to take care of your team and grow your culture, grow your organization, and explode your practice is fire the a-holes as quickly and as simple and as efficiently as you can once they, what's the word I'm looking for here to close this one out? Once they reveal themselves to be that way. So this is why you got to look not just at metrics, but you got to look at a person's motivations. And if their motivations are their title, their significance, their ego, then they are going to be toxic. Don't let any of those people onto your team. Get rid of them as soon as they identify themselves. And that's what you need to know. It's not always easy to get this. You're going to miss this. A lot of people can act very humble. A lot of people can hide a lot of these insecurities and these ego-driven narcissistic things when you're in the interview and even hiring and onboarding process. Generally, this stuff sneaks by the hiring process and shows up, sometimes not even for a year or two. Like this person will be on good behavior until they feel like they've kind of cemented their seat via the KPIs. And then the narcissism rears its head. So I hope you watch this video. I hope you watch it all the way through. Share it with someone else. Us business owners and practice owners, we all talk to each other. You know that some of your homies have 2 CAs and a doc that they need to fire 2 years ago and they haven't yet. And this video right here may be the explanation and the perception, the understanding that they really, really needed to be able to make this very difficult, but very needed and very awesome move as a leader of the team. This move subtracts kind of addition via subtraction. Getting rid of toxicity is probably the biggest thing I've ever seen grow our practice. The 2 doctors I was talking about before, they got on, they were high performers. They helped us grow by 100 or 200 visits. And then they just hit cruise control, and their cruise control was toxic and nasty. And so then we got stuck and plateaued, and we were never going to be able to grow with that doc on the team. The instant we fired them, both times, the practice absolutely exploded. So this video is real life experiences, real life strategy. Credit again to Gary Vee. Please share it. Please comment below, questions, anything you need. We got you. We love you. This leadership lesson is one you really need to take and put in action because I think it probably hit home for a whole lot of you. See you on the next one.